Thanks everyone for listening today. I am Dr. John. I have to thank Patricia, part of the foundation that keeps me in line and guides my talk. I'm always got to thank Tim, Patricia, and the foundation for making this podcast work. They value psychology perspective, and I'm fortunate that I'm able to do this once a month. So I want to also say hello to some of my students who are listening today, and welcome to our podcast for the first time. Valentine's Day. Hello, everyone on Valentine's Day. So my first question for all of you, yes or no on the chat. Do you have a Valentine's Day partner? Lots of yeses, lots of nos. I'm going to talk about relationships. We're going to have a great podcast today because I have two individuals who are willing to come on to our podcast and share a little bit about their, what has gone well to make it work for them. We have Billy and Christine. They're going to come on as a couple. I'm going to drill them with tough questions, and they are going to share some of their skills and expertise. And then we have Dr. Hayward at the end of the podcast to talk about some of her professional experiences working with spinal cord injury. Dr. Hayward, and we'll talk a little bit up front. She's our clinical psychologist from California. So her and I are going to banter a little bit about some of the things we experienced over the years about spinal cord injury. You saw all the yes and no's out there. All the ones who have no's, you guys can look up each other and hook up, right? See, I ain't being a matchmaker already, and didn't cost you anything. Is it a tough day for many of us? And I'm going to say it is a tough day. It's a tough day when you're single. It's a tough day when you're married because there's always pressure. It's a different type of pressure, but it is a pressure. What did you get for someone for today? If you had someone to get something for, did you get anything today? Share any of your suggestions. It is hard enough to be dating in a world when able-bodied. If you don't have a physical disability, it is hard enough. Let alone when I broke my neck, that's the first thing that went through my head. When I realized, it took a few months to realize, but when I realized this wasn't going to change, for the first few months, man, I just thought I was going to get better. And after the few months, you wake up, nothing changed. You're still disabled. You're still using a wheelchair. I was like, man, what is my life going to be? Who would want someone like myself? It was hard. It was a tough thought. It was like, does anybody want to date someone who like myself? I was only 19. I barely even started dating in high school, let alone now I'm going through this process as a person in a wheelchair. This month, we're going to talk about relationships. Next month, we're going to talk about the relationship, intimacy, more the relationship process. Now, we're going to talk about relationship too the next month. But next month's more, we're going to dive deeper into what sexuality, the physical facets of the sexual part. Next month might not be as PG rated, but this month, we're going to talk the important part of getting a relationship, keeping it. As I was working on this relationship podcast, I was going through my head, all right, what are some of the things that, I want you listeners to think about, as we talk. I also go through, as I always do, a bunch of articles. So one of the things that came in my mind was, I remember dating a nurse from McGee Rehabilitation Hospital in Philadelphia. I believe at the time she was a student nurse. I'm telling you, spinal cord injury, when you're a male individual and you have someone who's someone your age who's in school to be a nurse, well, it's the best of all worlds, right? And I don't think Carol's listening today. I was trying to get a hold of her to say, hey, look, I'm going to give you a shout out today. I remember one time she said, I would like you to visit my apartment once in a while, because she always came to my apartment when I was in school. And I looked at her and I said, What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. She like, well, I'm always at your place and you never spend any time at my place. Yeah. The only reason I don't spend any time at your place is because you live in a freaking second floor. Hello? Hello? So I'm like, second floor, what are you talking about? That's why we don't go to your place. She goes, well, I would like to have spend a night at our place. It's just, I'm like, okay, let's see how that works. She lived in a house with different apartments. And she asked, there was a medical student that was living downstairs. And she said, look, we're gonna just carry you upstairs. I asked the medical student, we're just gonna lug you upstairs. I was like, okay, let's do it. One of the things I had to learn was, one, there's plenty of barriers in life that you just can't do. I just, no matter what I want to do, there's no way I'm going to do a steps. There's just no. On the other facet is you have to learn to accommodate. You have to learn to be flexible. You have to learn to somewhat give in. So I was like, let's do it. If you're willing to get someone at that time to help me get lugged up like a sack of potatoes, let's do it. And we did. And it was the last time I ever did it. But I did it. It was one time upstairs on the second floor. Now, I guess back then you're too stupid and too dumb and to think of what if there was a fire, right? We just don't think of those things. You just did it because you did it. So that was a reminder of an old days of just dating. I'll be honest, I didn't have too many problems finding dates. I think because I communicated well. It does go down to being able to communicate when you have relationships. I mean, being physically beautiful and attractive, that's all great things too, but it does come down to the communication part. And do you make your partner feel special? I mean, it doesn't have to feel all the time, but do you make her feel special? One of the podcasts in the past, I told you that one time I tried to make at that time would have been my girlfriend when I was going for my doctorate, how to make her feel special. So let's check it. Just think of this scenario. I'm going to give you this picture. Picture this scenario, okay? So I'm at McDonald's, right? Okay, I'm stopping at McDonald's on the way up to University of Connecticut. Go Huskies, although their basketball teams are struggling right now. But I'm on my way up there for my doctorate program interview, something like that sort. So I stopped up there with my girlfriend and we stopped at the McDonald's. It was a beautiful morning. I think it was sometime in April or May, early May. So it wasn't hot yet, but so she went into the McDonald's to get some coffee and whatever she needed for breakfast. And I sat outside in the parking lot. At that time, for those of you who aren't familiar with spinal cord injury, is that I had a leg bag on my right leg connected to me. So whenever I urinated, it went to the leg bag. I had a thought, I had an idea. Well, I can impress my girlfriend here. See, back then they had this little device that was electrically automated. So you can push a button and it would drain this bag, and I would drain my bag in, some grass somewhere if I couldn't. And if I didn't like you and I was at your house, I'd probably drain it on your floor. But I'm just kidding. I did not ever do that. But I drained my urine bag into a shape of a heart, like, just the design. And I thought, hey, yeah, this is impressive. I can create an art design. So when she came out and saw that, what do you think she reacted? And here's my next survey. Do you think she was reacted surprised and loved me and say, wow, you're impressive, what you can do with your urine? Or B, she got disgusted and looked at me and said, oh, what the hell are you doing? So what do you think, A or B? A, so on the chat here, A, she got excited, or B, she got disgusted? Holy cow. No one's giving me any kudos on the design. Well, Ruby, thanks, Ruby. I appreciate you giving me a little kudos there. Lots of B. Lots of B. Hey, look at Jackie said she was impressed. Good. I appreciate that, Jackie. A lot of A's coming around, but lots of B's. And I hate to say it. I'm going to hate to say it. Elijah and Charisma and Jeff, B plus. Oh, Jeff gave me a B. So it was a B. It was a B. She was impressed. She was not impressed with my shenanigans, although we ended up getting married. So she had to be somewhat impressed somewhere, right? So that's so much of my ideas and thoughts about this whole process. Yeah, it's a guy thing. You're right, Thomas. It is a guy thing. So I'm going to bring in the people that should be on this podcast and tell us a little bit more. Is our couple Billy and Christine? And Christine, they're going to come on. There you go. Billy, I set you up. See, I set you up to say, look, man, would you have done that, Billy?
So I was actually laughing, going, I kind of wish I was on this podcast, like during you were talking about this. I would have been impressed. But I also, like somebody else pointed out, it's a total guy thing. Like if you pee in the snow, guys are like, dude, look what I just wrote. Like, I think it's a guy thing. So
yeah, you're right. You're right. What, Christine, what'd you think? Would you have been disgusted, or would you have been okay with that? Would you have been?
I don't think I'd be disgusted. But I politely might not have answered your call for the second date.
Ooh, the polite thing, meaning you just ghost them.
Maybe.
So
But
we
married
have
her. She married you. That was your wife.
Yeah, but she ended up becoming my ex-wife, so I don't even go there. Okay. So yes, she did. So maybe that was the telling tale that she wasn't So let's not even go there. That's a whole nother podcast. And all you would just hear me just bitch and bitch. So save that another one. So tell me, how'd you guys meet?
So we met at a local gym, and it was love at first sight.
Yeah, honestly, it was. Honestly.
It actually took us a while, though.
A long time.
Yeah.
Okay. So Billy, I'm picturing now. I didn't introduce everybody. So you are in a wheelchair, right? To our listeners who don't know you, right? So you are in a wheelchair. So you're at the gym in your wheelchair, correct? Before you're at, okay. So you're working out, looking big, and it took her a while to get impressed with that. You're saying?
No, I was impressed right away. As a matter of fact, the first time I saw him,
You're impressed with him or his wheelchair?
I was almost love at first sight. But it took us a long time to get to the point where we dated.
Yeah. I think I had just gotten out of a really toxic 10-year relationship, and she was in the process of a divorce. So I think us meeting each other at the stage in our lives that we did was a blessing, but it was also a curse because we didn't just jump right into a relationship. I think we were kind of courting each other for the first couple of years.
3 years.
Yeah. So give us a little history there. So how long ago were you in a wheelchair by that time?
So I've been injured for 20 years now. And I think we had probably officially met maybe 7 years ago. So
7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've been seriously dating for 6 years.
Yeah. Okay, 13 years. And you are currently engaged, right?
Yes.
And I know you mentioned that. I don't know. Did you mention that last time I had you on, Billy?
I think so. No.
I don't think so. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Has the wheelchair become any facet of any part of your relationship as you court it? You're out, when you're doing the things, anything that comes up on a regular basis that you can share with our listeners that makes sense to us?
I'll let you go first, because I think we're gonna have different perspectives on this.
So the only difficulty I see in dating someone with a disability, or like in our relationship, is accessibility, honestly.
Accessibility to a physical building or to his heart?
To the world. Oh yeah, I did. You know what? I chased him long and hard until he caught me. But
Okay.
yeah, we spend every waking hour together. I adore him. We want to do everything together, explore the world, travel, learn different things. And I think that the only way a disability comes in the way of our relationship is in that facet, that the world isn't universally accessible. So but I think that challenge can be a blessing because we've really delved into adaptive fitness, adaptive sports, adaptive recreation. We've learned to travel in really interesting ways that have grown our relationship. So I think that challenge has helped us to grow in our relationship. It's given us more depth to our relationship. So
Billy, on the flip side, she's saying the physical part of that. Do you see that as a priority in dating someone who's able-bodied, or do you see something else that you had to go overcome, or something that you had to present more often?
I think it can be a roadblock if you allow it, because especially from the male perspective, you're going to constantly be monitoring if you measure up, if you're a good provider, if you can physically do things. I need to carry all the groceries in on the first trip. So there's certain.
Wait, do you carry the groceries?
No. So actually, I will though. I'll put as many bags in my mouth as I possibly can, and we can get into all like when it's sub temperatures in Michigan and she's out pumping my gas. And I have people giving me the thumbs up, like, yeah, because they have no idea I'm disabled. And
Oh, I get it.
I'm like,
So you're
no.
sitting in the car and she's and she's out pumping the gas, and everybody's giving you the thumbs. How do you feel when someone does that though? What is going through your heart and your soul at that point?
It's humorous. It's just we have a story about that. It's they don't know. And then of course, if you point out like, well, I would get out, but I'm disabled, I'm in a wheelchair, and everybody's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know.
So it's a catch-22 either way.
Correct. Yeah, Christina's a hairdresser, and really quick story. The hairdresser said, I have to tell you a funny story. So I had a lady came in and she said, I saw that Christine around town and she was in this big lifted truck and that guy made her get out and pump his gas. I can't believe that guy she's with. And the hairdresser's like, Christine's boyfriend is in a wheelchair. He's a paraplegic. And I had to explain it to her. So
it's not that you can get out and get pumped the gas. You're a para, so you can do anything almost. But it's a lot easier just for something so small, right? But it happens often though, right? I mean, you got to pump gas on a regular basis.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it got brought up traveling. Like we went to Jamaica last year and pushing luggage through the airport. I mean, it's hilarious. I'm got my baggage and I'm pushing my bag, and as much as I can. And
I'm 4'10", 4'10.5". So
oh, you're huge then, right? You're tall.
Yeah. So I have lots of luggage I'm pushing and carrying.
And we don't travel light. I mean, people with disabilities, period. And we travel light.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff. When I go to the grocery store, my wife hangs things on me like when you like a stroller. When you have a stroller, everything goes in a stroller except the baby. She can't throw me out of the chair, so she hangs things on me. Her purse, her bags, this bag, that bag. So I was like, okay, I've become a shelf or a dresser that we can drag around.
We would love to meet your wife sometime. I don't know if you ever bring her on.
Oh, never. She will never be on this podcast. She's so Billy, I'm putting you on the spot, man. What did you do on this beautiful Valentine's Day?
So I'm not anti-Valentine's Day. It's just, for me, it's a little bit more of a Hallmark holiday. I've always been like that. However, we are going out to an early dinner. And it is funny because I was watching the chat just light up with, a lot of people getting flowers and chocolates, and somebody said Crocs. That's adorable. We're actually doing an early dinner, and then we're just going to spend quality time together. And I think that's kind of what we found is growing in the relationship. I think we found what's important to each other. You hammered on that earlier. It's communication. And for us, our love languages just meshed really, really well. Quality time for both of us it means a lot to us. So
were you both naturally good communicators, or is that something that you had to work through? Because not everyone communicates well. So what did that make sense for you two?
To answer your question, I think we both are pretty good communicators. We're both extremely open with each other, but even more than ever, people with disabilities, you need to be completely open with the people you're either dating or going to get into a relationship with. And that has to do with the most intimate of details, whether that's bowel, bladder, skin integrity. Like you, Dr. John, you mentioned that the girl you were dating wanted you to go up the second floor And I'm just, my brain is just like, I've been there, done that, you know, where they're like, well, why don't you come over to my friend's house? And because he lives in a not accessible 3-story condo, you know, like,
Yes.
so
But again, that's nothing they ever had to think about when they were dating others who were able-bodied, right, Christine?
Right,
correct.
right. Yes, that's correct, but I think we all have, able-bodied and disabled, we all have things that we contend with and that we bring to a relationship that are challenges for the other person. So I think like Billy said, creating that open space where everything is talked about and everything is in the open, I think that builds trust and is especially important if someone's disabled in the relationship.
My psychology background naturally want to dig into your toxic and your divorce there, Christine, but I'm not going to go there because I do know those experiences impact how you are today. Can I say that, right? That I could say that. But what, are there something, with a wheelchair that, oh man, it's just annoying, Christine. It's just something about it that just annoys it. Does it bring in dirt? There's got to be something to complain about, right? It can't be picture perfect.
I can leave.
I don't know. I don't want to give the idea that it's picture perfect, but I met Billy in a wheelchair. I fell in love with him in a wheelchair, and it's just kind of an extension of who he is. There's really nothing I can think of. I mean, okay, we live in Michigan, and when it's freezing cold and I'm pumping gas, because he has a big truck, to get it close enough to the pump, it's hard enough for him to get out. So when I'm moving groceries and the chair is heavy, but
those are annoyances that you have to deal with, but they're not
that's
surmountable, right?
everyday thing. Love is a verb. When you love someone, you're doing your life with them, and these small sacrifices aren't really they don't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things, I guess. So for me personally, the wheelchair is not an issue whatsoever. I know him like this, and I fell in love with him like this, and I adore him like this, and I think God put him in this place in my life just like he is, and so I don't really have an issue with the chair.
Now, Billy, last time I talked to you, you were on vacation, actually. Last time you were on a podcast, you were somewhere up north in Michigan, something, was it? Right?
We were actually up in the UP on Lake Superior.
Okay, you weren't shooting any balloons down up there, right?
No, the rifle I had didn't go that high. But.
Okay, all right. Okay, so no balloons were being shot down, or at least you didn't spot anything on it when you were way up there near Michigan. So you were traveling at that point, and was there anything at the traveling at that point that you thought, you wish you could have done, would have done, but you were in a wheelchair?
It wasn't always this way. When I first met Christine, I was kind of not a shut-in, but I was afraid to try things. And I think during the duration of our dating and being together, the more comfortable I got with her, there isn't anything I wouldn't try. So funny story, we got off that podcast and we were with another couple. We rented canoes and kayaked down this river out to Lake Superior. I had no idea what I was doing or if I was going to be able to do it. And we had 2 guys carry me down this huge ravine and throw me and another buddy who was a paraplegic in these kayaks and canoes. And we kayaked and went down the river. And I think as long as you keep an open mind and you have a trusting relationship with the people you're with, your caregivers, I think that's kind of part of the adventure, is that you can share a relationship with somebody and just be open to try these things that you don't know how they're going to work out, but as long as you feel secure in that, I think that's part of the fun.
Now, I'm gonna sort of point out little details though to our listeners out there some of them are my students, some are people with spinal cord injury. Some of them are going to say, hey man, he looks like a para. He can do everything pretty much on his own. And could I say, Billy, you probably take care of your own physical needs, and you don't really need any caregiving at this point in your life right now?
I can. And for me, there's a big difference between caregiving and assistance. Like, I could probably re-shingle my roof. Is that realistic? No. So it's kind of like the same thing as pumping gas. I can pump my own gas, but is it realistic for me to get out and spend 20 minutes to get it when she might be able to do it for 5? So there's just little shortcuts and stuff that, to answer your question, kind of funny. I have a quadriplegic buddy who said, everybody says you paras have it made. He said, I have caregivers to do everything. I have caregivers to do my bowel program. I have caregivers that cath me. I have caregivers that transfer me. He said, you parents have to transfer yourself, you have to drive yourself, you have to do your own bowel programs. And I kind of never thought about it that way, that I'm able to do that kind of stuff. However, quadriplegics have to constantly rely on other people to do that. So,
And you, go ahead, Christine, you were saying.
Yeah, you're able to do those things, but you are constantly, I mean, you have a high level injury for a para, you're right from your chest down, you have a complete injury.
yeah, T6.
But you are constantly pushing yourself to reach and do everything that you can do. You've created a lot of autonomy for yourself because you are a great advocate and you do your rehab and you, so I think I think it might be easy if you're disabled or short to say I can't do something, but so that's a mindset as well, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a great mindset. Your friend is sort of restructuring how he sees the world and try to look at it in a positive way. Yes, he has, for me, I have such a need to be independent that even though I have a lot of people doing all those things for me, it drives me crazy. It literally drives me crazy to think to have to, every day, it's at 2.5 hour, 3 hour morning, showering, dressing. You can't get started until that person comes. And if you're in Michigan like you, and I'm in Pennsylvania, and it snows, that person isn't coming.
Yeah.
Right? So now what do you do? So I'm going to bet your friend, we got to get your friend on the line so I can, on sometime, so I can push his buttons. You're now. Yeah, now we're going to have problems because now it's someone else is controlling our life because no one's showing up. It's funny. There's so many different studies that talk about if you got married before and you guys are engaged, you got married before your disability, if you're disabled, then get married, there's a higher rate of divorce versus if you get married and then have your disability, it seems to go up. I would have thought logically would have been in the opposite way, that if you're disabled and then you get married, you already talked about it, right? It's gone through some of the things already. But
we've discussed that. There's a group called WAGS, Wives and Girlfriends of Spinal Cord Injury, that I belong to.
What's it called? You want to point that out again?
It's called WAGS, Wives and Girlfriends of Spinal Cord Injury. They're on Facebook and Instagram. They have a self-care group. They have, personal groups that you can join, but they're also just openly on there. And I read stories constantly about people who had a wonderful, idyllic life. They have little children, and then there was a traumatic accident. And here is this spouse, this partner who is beside themselves. Now what do I do? And he and I have talked about that a little bit. That's a really difficult situation to find yourself in. I came in a beautiful spot where I know who he is, and we didn't have anything before this. I don't have anything to compare it to. I think our life is idyllic, but people might feel the opposite if they were in a relationship and then the accident happened.
Yeah. And those listeners out there, if you have any questions for Billy and Christine, I didn't actually point that out in the beginning. Feel free to put on the chat right now, and I can get them the answer right now as we talk. I'm going to get Dr. Hayward on in a few minutes, but so if you have any questions right now, please put it on the chat, and I can quick ask Billy and Christine while they're still on here. With our last few minutes, Billy and Christine, what would you like to say to people who are out there who want to date or are in a relationship? What are some of the things would you advise us that that would benefit our lives?
My advice is always kind of, whether you're disabled or not, you need to make sure you are in the right place to be in a relationship. And that could mean, I think a lot of people, they fill voids with relationships and marriage and children and puppies and things they can't afford. And I don't think marriage is one of those things, especially that you're supposed to be filling voids with. I think you need to be in a right place for marriage. I think you need to be ready for a relationship because, you're taking two personalities and trying to meshing them together. But if you haven't, especially after an injury, if you're not ready for that, if you're not fully content with where you're at in your life, that's a hard thing to put on another person to deal with your anger, with your ups and downs every day after an accident or a disability. So,
so you're sort of preaching to the choir here. So fix yourself, go see a therapist, get yourself in the right place.
Plug for you.
Right. So you're saying like lay that foundation, right? The cement, get it right before you put a building on it, right?
Yeah.
And Christine, on your side?
Billy's a peer mentor. He talks to a lot of people who are newly injured. And my thought process is always, especially if it's a young man who's newly injured, I know those questions are out there. Will I ever find love? Will anyone ever want me? And I would want all of those people to know that not only is there a shoe for every sock, you are uniquely spectacular in the person that you are. I fell in love with Billy, I think, because of his, my immediate attraction was because of his confidence in who he was. And there is someone there for you, regardless of your disability. Your disability is on the outside. Some of us, our disabilities are on the inside. Everyone comes with baggage. You find someone who will help you unpack it and who will treasure you, and you will. So I know I would want people not to be despondent on that.
Okay, well said. And you know, I was already attracted to Billy right off the bat because he was so well groomed. And I didn't realize he was so well groomed because of you. So I should have just gave kudos to you on that. So we have a few questions. I just saw them flipping through. I saw one says to age difference, not that it's inconsequential, but they want to know what your age difference is.
There is.
There's
Yeah,
an age difference.
There is.
You
Can't just
wanna
move on.
talk about? All right.
There's an age difference. And to me, it was a big deal. To him, it was not that big of a deal. To me, really, up until the past 2 or 3 years, I was still quite concerned about the age difference. And
Hey, man,
so-
my eyes are not good, but you guys looks like you're almost the same age to me. So,
oh,
all
Well-
right.
sending you a present.
How do you get in the right place for marriage?
In marriage or, in relationships, period. I think first of all, in order to even find people, you have to be open. You have to, I know so many people that they're like, I'll never find anybody. Like, well, you wake up and go to work and come home and you do that all over again. Like, you need to put yourself out there in order to meet people. I'm not a big proponent of online dating, but that might be a good start for some people that are, a little afraid to go out there and put themselves out.
I always say find a church, but I know that's not.
People want to know, are you raising a family, or do you have children around to run around a family raising?
I do have 2 children. They're
Just two
grown.
kids. Yeah.
They're wonderful, Shannon and Darren. They're amazing. And I think that's another thing, when you have children and bringing into a relationship, that's difficult as well when they're not shared children. So everybody has things they bring to a relationship, but.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I hope this was an enjoyable experience, that my listeners didn't ask too many tough questions, or I didn't poke at you too much. But Billy, if you get to know me, I like to poke at things. So
Well, I came back, so it couldn't have been too bad.
all right. Thank you. Thank you again. And we're gonna bring in, so we're gonna bring in Dr. Hayward right now. We're gonna sign off, and if there's any other questions, please stay with us, and we may bring you back on at the end. Okay.
We'll
Sounds
stay
good.
on this side. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Dr. Hayward, she is a clinical psychologist in the Silicon Valley. You and I have not even had a chance to talk about what's it like to practice in California. She has a PhD in psychology from Harvard University. Welcome, Dr. Hayward.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
I want to say, Dr. Hayward and I first met because she was a professional in a wheelchair, so she has both the experience as a paraplegic, correct, and as well as a practicing psychologist. You just heard from Christine and Billy on this last segment here. What are your thoughts of what are the strength of this couple and what they bring into this? What are your thoughts?
First, I think that they're a lovely couple, and I really commend both of their mindsets and attitudes about the way that they have simply leaned into acceptance of what is, right? Billy has a disability, Christine does not, and that's where the problems end. They're able to find the advantages that life has to offer and problem solve around any disadvantages. And I think the one thing that the sort of the elephant in the room around the conversation of having a romantic relationship when you have a disability, or, particularly a spinal cord injury and use a wheelchair, the elephant in the room is stigma, right? There is, to a large extent, society devalues people with disabilities. The interesting thing is that in the research, it shows that even people with disabilities, particularly those who acquire their disabilities, like both of us and Billy, we can have internalized stigma about ourselves,
Mhm.
meaning lowered expectations for ourselves. However, I think that the most helpful stance to take in life is that disability is simply another form of diversity, right? And once we can get to that place within ourselves that we realize that disability isn't worse, it's just different.
Mhm.
And therefore, we are all equally worthy of love, worthy of romance, worthy of, physical intimacy, etc., then we can present ourselves in a more confident, more attractive manner.
That confidence, I'm going to ask you from a question from a patient and not from a therapist point of view. So I'm going to throw it out there. So, when I was dating, when I look at things, it is so difficult not to compare to what others bring in. And I try to write that question to you a little bit prior to, this podcast, that how can I make myself interesting? How could I make myself, I said attractive, but I don't mean physically, although I have to meet our next month, we have a friend coming on, and he mentioned one time about, wow, when you're dating, make sure you smell good. You don't have, you have urine bags, you got your stuff like that. Don't make those things obvious. Make sure you're well dressed and you smell good. And I thought, well, dang, you're right. We don't think about a lot of those things. So how do I make, is that an issue? I know everything's about love and relationship, but look, I am still in a wheelchair. That has to play a factor, doesn't it?
I think that in my own mind, I've divided people, meaning potential romantic partners, into roughly 3 groups. I think that there's people who will see you and just see the chair. And those people might be closed. And so we just need to discard them. The
Okay.
second group will see the chair and see you and be curious, right? And they
Okay.
might be open to getting to know you, getting to know the person in the chair, and that's fine. But the third group, my favorite group, is people that will see you, and then they'll see the chair as an afterthought, as something that's a little bit irrelevant, except when buildings aren't accessible. And then it's a chance to problem solve. And so I think it really depends on the person with whom you're interacting. And I've met plenty of people who fall into all 3 of those categories. And I think one thing about using a chair is that it's made me much more selective. I'm much pickier now about who I would choose to partner with, and make sure they're either in group 1 or 2.
Yeah. I never thought of that. And those listeners out there, please, if you have a question for Dr. Hayward while she's on, just like the last one, throw them on right now, and I'll get a chance. I'll try to see if I can ask your questions on air while we had a chance. So you just said, ignore the ones who just sees the chair, right? The second one, where they see you in the chair, but they're curious. All right, maybe they have some potential, right? And then, but you got to love the other one, the first one, the one that just sees you as a human being with a diversity background, right?
Exactly. And I think people, when they're first injured, they might pay a lot of attention to group 1, the group that no longer is attracted to somebody with a disability. But over time, I found that just one's tolerance, I know for myself, my tolerance for that group just really disappeared. Because if they are that limited in their mindset, why spend your time with them? You're not going to change them. And there's so many people that fall into as many people, I believe, that fall into groups 2 and 3. And group 2 is interesting, right? Because perhaps they've just never encountered somebody with a disability, or somebody with a disability like you, meaning somebody who's still full of life and wants a romantic relationship and is interested and interesting. And so they're still open to letting you shine. And then, of course, group 3 is the easiest, because they really just see you as a human who has something interesting, like they see the wheelchair as like blonde hair, if they prefer blonde hair versus brown hair, for example. It's just a detail.
So one of our listeners, like Jess, says he wants to really know, do you think there are actually good people out there that can see you and not the chair at all? Are there actually people like that out there?
I know there are. Absolutely, because I've dated most of them. And
There you go, Jeff. She dated most of them. So there
not
are
even
people out, she can at least
really,
count 20, 30 right now. I didn't ask, but
40, 50. Oh,
50,
no,
all right.
right.
Okay.
No, I joke, but I'm serious, and I wouldn't say that they don't see the chair at all, right? They, of course, they note it, but it's sort of an irrelevant. It's irrelevant in terms of my worth, or they see it as a plus, meaning like, wow, that person has gone through something that must be difficult. She must be resilient, and I think resilience is sexy. That's something that I've heard quite a bit of, and I appreciate that, because it feels good to be appreciated for what you have overcome and the way you live your life.
I'm going to ask a gender question here.
Mhm.
Based on your experience as a professional, is it harder? Now, I know research is pointing in one direction, but is it harder for a male who's in a wheelchair to date, or is it harder for a female in a wheelchair to date?
That is such a good question, John. And it's something that I've contemplated my entire 28 years of being injured. And I have lots of guy friends in chairs and female friends in chairs. And I think that there's challenges in both, right? And most of them come down to that same societal expectations for the different genders. And there's the only problem. For women, it might be more difficult to date because society has this one very fixed idea of what beautiful looks like, of what a nice body and a beautiful woman is, right?
Mhm.
On the other hand, for a guy, society has pretty fixed ideas about masculinity and being able to be the protector and the caregiver and so forth. And all of those societal assumptions can really get in the way. So I think the answer to that for either of the sexes is, as one of my wise mentors used to say, catch it, check it, change it, meaning catch the stigma or catch the societal expectation when it comes into your mind. Check it, meaning ask yourself, is this accurate and is this helpful? And then change it. If your answer to either is no, right? Adopt a new belief. I've found that through that simple process, which can be tricky at times, I'll admit, but through that process, you can rewrite your own narrative of dating, of love, of just about anything, really.
Right, right. Well, you're talking about taking control of a lot of these issues internally first and figure it out in your head. All right. Would you agree with me? And maybe you may not agree with me with this. So, and I think based on the stigma of our current generation, that more women are accepting of a male in a wheelchair because of maybe some of that old traditional nurturing role or capacity that, and again, and for males, they're focused on the wrong things at times. Do you think those things, stigmas, those specific biases there are playing a big factor? Because we see a lot more male individuals, in wheelchairs who do date more often than traditional female. I hear that all the time.
I think the reason for that is because there's more men in wheelchairs.
So you think so? It's a population issue and not more of a
in terms of the visibility of disabled men with non-disabled women, right? It's 80-20, meaning 80% of men with spinal cord injury, 80% of people with spinal cord injuries are men and only 20% are women. But I think that you have a good point in that there is the societal expectation for being, for women, for being nurturing and being a caregiver that lends itself well to that particular type of relationship. But there's also a different one that works against men, and that is a lot of men who have approached me like being the strong caregiver. They love carrying me, being the one who can carry me up Machu Picchu and carry me up 7 flights of stairs and kind of protect me from the world. And so it also plays the other way. I think it's very nuanced, but I think in general that the more visible or the greater visibility of why there's a group, for example, for WAGs, for wives and girlfriends, but
Yeah,
not.
yeah, Christine just mentioned that.
Yep. I think that's just because there's so many more men with spinal cord injuries.
Yeah, there's not a group for men like that, is there? Is there,
Not a group of women, no.
or that I'm aware of? What
Not a
happened?
group of men, right, right.
Jan asked, do you have any suggestions on how can we start beginning to love ourselves? And she asked, are affirmations helpful? So how do we just start saying, man, this is what I have, this is what I bring to the table. Although
Yeah.
let me preface it a
Mhm.
little bit. I always tell my friends or my individuals who have a disability, especially a level of quadriplegia, is you need to have some level of education and employment, because that helps. You don't want to be living off of Social Security, because it's a harder lifestyle. Then, so I'm always, again, I mean, you and I know I'm a professor, so I'm biased about education for everything. But is there a way to love ourselves more?
I do think so. And there's a number of scientifically grounded methods that have grown in the past, I'd say 20 years or so. There was a movement that was started around the year 2000 called positive psychology. And it was looking at how do we access our strengths? How do we love ourselves? Basically, how do we see what's right with us rather than pathologize and see what's wrong? So I do think that there's methods, and there's a lot of research out there to back them up. Just one is, and I think this is very important for being newly injured or just entering the dating scene, is to know your value. Meaning find out what your strengths are. And there's a scientifically validated test called the VIA Character Strengths Survey. It's VIA Character Strengths. It was developed by Professor Chris Peterson, who I worked with once. It's a test of like hundreds of questions. But anyway, what it produces is your 5 character signature strengths.
Wow.
And it's a really
Okay.
good way to reorient the way you think about yourself so that you can lead with your strengths. And maybe one of your strengths is humor. Well, lead with that. You know, integrate that into your dating profile if you're doing
Yeah, yeah.
online dating.
As you see, I try to lead with my humor as well. So,
Yes, you
and
do.
Zach, can you put that on somehow if you're our information specialist on that? Oh, there it is, viacharacter.org. Thank you for putting that. So you take that and look at some of your strength and you lead with that, you're saying.
Absolutely. And I think in particular, if people are opting for online dating, right, we have to create these profiles that capture us in a tiny little space. It's a good, I think disability really allows us to crystallize what it is about us that makes us us. What's our essential nature and what do we have to offer? Because it's easy to be somebody who can do 10,000 things, you know, be everything to everyone, but disability forces you to choose.
If you're on, you were just mentioning about the dating, if you're on a dating profile should you put that you're disabled on your profile? Should you be out there up front, or should you just hide it a little bit until they get to know you?
Such a good question. And it's a really hot debate. I think the side that's winning, so to speak, in terms of the research and also from talking to my clients and friends with disabilities, it leans towards revealing your disability, meaning use pictures that aren't just cropped from the waist up. You know, have a couple active pictures of you in your chair, or say some cute something about yourself having a disability. And it doesn't mean that it has to dominate your profile, because it's just one aspect of who we are, and we all know that. So you don't have to make it all about your disability, but I do think that it makes things easier if you can integrate or weave your disability into your profile. It just gets a lot, it will weed people out, that first group of people.
That first group, right?
That first group, right? It kind of eliminates them, and that's okay. You don't want to date them anyway.
Dr. Hayward, you should create a scale that people can just give to someone at a date, so that here, quick, take this. I want to know what group you're in before I even spend and pay for dinner, because I don't want that third group, right? You know, I don't want that, that first group, right?
Yep, I think for anybody who's done online dating, there are a couple of big hints, and
Okay,
it's
red flags.
big red flags that in how people interact with you in the online space, meaning like people who their first question before they tell you their name, their real name, is can you have sex? Right?
Mhm.
Big red flag. Maybe they're in the curious group too, but basically they're starting from a deficit model because the assumption is you can't.
Yeah, we're
Which is
gonna
not
talk about that next month. The
Yes,
sex,
next
the
month
big
will be
S. That's a
that will
big
be a
one.
topic.
Yeah, that's, you want to talk about an elephant in the room. That's like a big elephant in the room as well. So I'd like to bring Christine back, and thank you, Dr. Hayward, for sharing us with your professional and personal expertise. If we can bring Christine back and Billy for a few minutes and wrap up here a little bit. In hearing all that, Billy and Christine, and listening through all that, is there something, is there anything additional that you would want to share with us in these last few minutes? And I'm going to give Dr. Hayward a little bit chance at the end too as well. First of all, I want to thank you for coming on, because this is not, our listeners are some of our really new, like my students who are, the future psychologists, and they have no idea what they're doing, and they're just learning from bits and pieces. And then we have others who are part of our world, part of my world of spinal cord injury, and some of them are going through this. How do you get, to where you're at? So.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Hayward. You brought up so many cool, interesting insights that I wouldn't have thought of. So thank you. In dating, I would say one of the things that has been amazing for us has been Billy's ability to be open and honest with everything about his disability. If this is what you're talking about, dating someone with a disability or dating someone who's able-bodied, I think that clear and clean open space and honest space is very important in building trust.
Again, Dr. Hayward, you would hit on pretty much everything that we were like, oh, that was a great point. We're going to bring that up. The confidence aspect of it. I think there was a question in the chat about, do you ever have off days? Yeah, I know today we were talking about relationships, but she's with me through thick and thin, and that's a hard thing.
Likewise.
Yeah, I mean, it's every day is not a great day, but just like with her, I think she saw that I exumed confidence. I don't feel like I do all the time. I don't feel like I'm that guy, but she somehow picked up on it. So it's like the old saying, you fake it till you make it, I guess. It took a while to get here, and it's been a long road, but yeah. So.
And if you are in a relationship and you're building it, one thing that is always at the forefront of my mind is that love is a choice. And I choose Billy, and I will continue to choose him all the days of my life. So all of those little things are a choice as well, because love's a verb. So yeah.
Very good. Well said. Billy, you said fake it till make it. I'm constantly pretending I'm a paraplegic, but just doesn't seem to work. But I wake up and say, today I'm going to be a para, and it doesn't work.
I love your sense of humor.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Within
Great.
3 minutes, I'm told I'm a quad. So it's like, just does not work. Dr. Hayward, any last thing you want? There was I think asking, how to get a hold of you. I hope you put some of your info out there about how to get a hold of you. I know you have that new website going on.
Yeah, my website's in the chat. And
Yes, awesome. Tell me, any last words?
Absolutely. I think to sum up, the gist of what we're saying is that people will respond to your disability, will respond to the wheelchair based on how you present it. If you can present it as a piece of who you are as a valuable, interesting, charismatic, confident person, then that's how it will be received. Yeah. Unless they're in the first group, which we've decided
we don't want to talk about that first group. Those groups are out of my mind. No more first group people. First group. Listeners out there, I want you to thank you for listening today and sharing about relationship. Next month, I'm going to hopefully put together a good let's talk about sex part of this process, and that can get a little R-rated. So those of you who don't want to hear those things, and those are under 18, and parents, you have kids listening, man, you may not want to listen to that podcast. But I have to, I'm going to end up with giving you a couple of little stories here. So as you heard today, you got to use what you have. So, I noticed that they start selling these little boxes that you can put on your wheelchair that I can carry things, because you know, you have phones, you got chargers, whatever. And the neat thing about my new chair is I can charge my own phone from my own batteries, which is like amazing. So I wanted to, you know, because I'm going to start charging people who need to charge their stuff off of my chair, because you know, I got to make money in order to do this podcast. So, but I started calling those little boxes my Louis Vuitton bags, because you know, because there's that song that goes out, I can't get it out of my head sometimes. You know, like she has her Louis Vuitton bag or something. I don't know who's that by, but the other thing though, the other thing I wanted, some people may ask, well, what did I get for my wife today? You know, you're gonna hate me, some of you. I got her 40 little bags of flower seeds, because she loves to grow flowers. If you saw my office in here, it's full of plants. It says overtaken my plants, but she likes to, so that's what I got her for today. You know, did she get me anything? No, she ran out today. So we'll see if she, but on that note, thank you everyone.
Thank you so much.
Podcast. Everyone,
Thank
have
you.
a great day. Valentine's. Take care. Signing off. See you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.